Welcome, everybody. This is the Octopus Movement on Dialogue with the topic mental health. We're very excited here tonight. For me, it's tonight in Europe. This is the first time we're doing a dialogue session. Every month within the Octopus Movement, we have a theme. So this month, it's about mental health. We already did a think tank with a lot of beautiful octopi and nonlinear thinkers. And we decided to have a dialogue on this topic to complete the think tank session that we already did before. Let me introduce everybody quickly. We have Anthony, aka Grandpa Stork. I love that, Grandpa Stork. Thank you for being here. We have Lauren Colombo. Hi, Lauren. So happy to see you here from South Africa, if I'm not mistaken. The same thing for Cliff Lewis. He's also from South Africa. Thank you so much for being here, Cliff. Chrissy, thank you. I'm not pronouncing your last name. I don't want to make any mistakes. Lydia, our podcast host, good friends. So happy to see you here. Jennifer Hill, founder, CEO of Optimatch, and so many other things. And Bream, I'm so happy you're here. I just ordered your books. I can quickly show that to everyone. This is the book of her son, and this is her book. Perry loves books. I love reading. Thank you, Michelle, for being here, our UK ambassador, founding member, always present in the Octopus Movement, and Michelle Rez. So happy you're here. What are we doing today? We're doing something special. This is not about an agenda or we want to create a statement or at the end we want to agree with all of us and we found the perfect angle with regards to mental health. No, we want to free dive. We want to think together. We want to open up the empty space between thoughts and allow ourselves to really think in a nonlinear way, which is disconnected from the laws of thought. And in my opinion, the laws of thought are there in a system where we all are trained into think in a specific way. And the only way out, to create a solution within the crisis that's happening today everywhere or with everyone is to think differently. And I've created the statement that within the Octopus Movement, we're very good in different thinking. So let's do that today. There are no rules. I'm just a facilitator, and I'm very curious about what will happen with our thoughts. And I want to open up the thinking by asking all of you, and then I will stop asking questions and being the host, I will just facilitate. But I kept thinking today when I was thinking about today's session, what is mental health? Do we have that a very clear idea about what mental health is and who wants to share their thinking immediately?
Harry, I'll go if you'd like. I just had the pleasure and honor of being part of a mental health summit that took place around the world. And somebody much wiser than me, Michael Singer, author of The Untethered Soul and the Surrender Experiment, was asked the same question at the beginning of his talk. And I think the problem is that if we see ourselves as not healthy, if we see ourselves as not whole, it's from that place that we then see ourselves in the world. Many of us don't realize that, speaking of our mental well-being, that every second of every day we have 11 million bits of information at a subconscious level bombarding us. Yet at a conscious level, we only pay attention to 50 to 120 of those bits. So I would begin this conversation and this inquiry that we're all about to engage in around mental health with beginning as seeing ourselves and one another and the world as whole, complete, and perfect. And that was a piece of wisdom that Dalai Lama gave me in a meditation 4 years ago when I was looking to do a global meditation. He said, Jennifer, if you're doing this because you think the worlds need to be fixed because mental health or people are broken, then you're not going to be able to make a difference. However, if you do this from seeing yourself as whole, complete, and perfect, and the world as whole, complete, and perfect, then from that place, a new dialogue and a new experience can emerge.
Hey, Perry. You hear me
Hey,
okay?
Anthony. I can hear you okay. Yeah.
All right, great. And I appreciate that, Jennifer, because I think starting at that place, then when we look about it, how do we define, collectively what mental health is about, what our mental health is about. It's about, if we're thinking from a whole place, then being able to repair our thought processes, and not only that, but how we communicate our thought processes, and that support, a healthy conversation. And so I believe, maybe what, do we have, can we come to maybe a shared consensus about, how do we define mental health? And, one of the best ways I heard was being able to repair our thought processes. So that's what I had to share.
While I agree with Anthony, I also think that it's mental health is very individual to the person. For me, my mental health has meant peace within. And I think that's different for every person at different levels. So I think that it is difficult to streamline mental health, and it is not a cookie cutter approach. I think for me, the best way to attain mental health was getting to know myself. And if we teach people to know themselves and explore what lights them up inside, that they have a better shot at attaining mental health.
I'd love to add that what we're doing here is interpreting this as creating a definition of mental health, and as well a name for mental health. It is a name, and we define things that have a name. When we think of this in a way that is how we interpret this within our place in the world, and that is changeable, just as our interpretation is changeable. So what I want to offer is that I like to call this mental wellness and emotional wellness, because the wellness has to do with our response and our ability to respond to one another. And that, for me, I believe, is a part of us that connects with ourselves, that is grounded in ourselves, that is present in ourselves, and as such can be present with others that are around us. But not everyone has the same ability to have presence as we might. And their way of being present is something that, by us quieting ourselves, being in this space of quiet, we can actually listen to the whole, be part of the whole, because we are part of the whole, and the whole is just flowing. And so I love what Jennifer was saying, that yes, we are perfect in essence, that definition of perfect, not broken, not always right, not wrong, just perfect.
One quick thing, Lydia, I just want to piggyback on that somebody in the chat added is Edwin said in here, you have to love yourself before you can impart love to someone else. And I cannot agree with that enough, Edwin. It's something I call the golden triangle of connection. We will never be able to make meaningful connections with ourselves or with others until we first connect to ourselves and our self connection. What you just said, Lydia, was brilliant. We must cancel. I never like to say must or should. we have the opportunity to quiet the noise around us, to hear that inner stillness and that inner voice. And in doing so, that then opens up a space for us to facilitate and have meaningful connections with others, and eventually to connect to our highest being, our purpose, though that's not possible until we first connect to ourselves. So I just wanted to piggyback on that and acknowledge Edwin's comment. So beautiful, Lydia, and thank you. Thank you, Grandpa Stork. It's great to have everybody here, and Chrissy.
If I may jump in quickly, Jennifer, I agree. I disagree with you completely on the needing to love oneself first.
Love it. Bring it up.
I think that's one of the most limiting things that we keep hearing is you have to love yourself before you can love someone else. And for somebody who has gone through a huge amount of trauma in one's life and has experienced this feeling of disconnection, not just from society and from people around us, but from myself, I didn't think I would ever be able to love myself as a person. And therefore, hearing this again and again and again made me truly believe that no one would be able to love me and I couldn't love anyone else, even though my biggest love language is acts of service and giving to people and spending time on them and absolutely giving every piece of my being to adore another person. By being told I can't love until I love myself, absolutely wrecked and ruined me on an emotional level. So I think there is room to be able to love another and have that love curate a love for oneself and allow that to grow and become the seed of self-love, because you're seeing and you're able to mirror this action and this emotion coming from another who can teach you to be kind and gentle and loving to the core of who you are, and that therefore establishing and helping to maintain that emotional and mental well-being.
Yeah, aren't we here to learn? Don't we learn? And don't we change with this, with our learning? Don't we perhaps learn how to love and not even know how to love until we are loved, or until we love, until we are compassionate, or we have been acted toward with compassion? So it's something that exists with us, with our very existence in that moment. And each person is existing in a different way, just like our finger is existing in a different way than our elbow, but they're connected.
I'm just going to add in here, I'm listening to both Jennifer and Lauren and can resonate with both. And like you said, Lydia, is having somebody, we have different parts and we all react to things differently, and it's a continuum. I'm seeing this as a guiding light is often needed with somebody who is struggling with their own mental wellness, and having somebody that can either model it for them so they can see what it is and experience this, just as both of you are saying, and also be able to honor themselves and what they have. But oftentimes we need that community, that person, that guiding light to help people see within themselves and within others so they can experience, if they haven't experienced it yet, that's loving support.
Can I quickly do something technical here? I see Abrim, you're talking.
That's what I was trying to do, Perry. I wanted to turn it over. We couldn't.
So okay, we're out of the flow. Thank you, Perry, for doing that. We were very nicely in the flow, but I want to make sure Abrim is okay. Can you say something so we can check your sound? If Can you hear now? No, it's very soft. It sounds like your microphone is covered or not working.
No, it's just here. Okay, let me check.
We hear you, but you're far away.
Okay, let me.
Could your microphone volume be down by chance?
Yeah, that could be better.
Yeah, in your computer settings.
I did like my so just couple of hours I mean, few hours ago, so it was working very well.
Now you sound like a train conductor. That's terrible. Terrible train conductor messages on the London Underground. They're supposed to tell you where you are, but you still have no idea because it's just like.
Yeah, and you're thinking, oh dear, I'm missing out on something important. Abrim, can we try it again?
Sure. Can you hear
Oh,
properly
far
now?
away.
No, far away.
No.
Maybe you can restart.
Okay.
Try to
Maybe
come
I'll
back
join
and then.
back. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds better.
Okay.
Wait, what happened?
Okay. I just turned on the volume. I can keep
Great
my sound
job.
on.
It's
So
working.
this-
It's good to hear you.
Yeah.
Please share.
Okay, Abrim, now we want to know everything, what you're thinking.
Okay, so anyways, sorry for all this technical glitch. I don't know how it happened, but anyway, so I wanted to actually share that what mental health is and why. I mean, like you already shared, so like it's wonderful to hear these opinions about the mental health from Lydia, from Jennifer, and it's amazing that how we each see things differently and define it in a different way. What I can say is that the the, the reason I got into it because like it is all started with one quote when I actually read the René Descartes that said that he said that I think therefore I am. So I think our mind is all I think mental health is everything, and our mind is defines everything for us, whether it's like our physical health, our spiritual health, emotional health, whatever we think, we become. So I think the only thing that is in reality exist is mental health, and everything else is all connected with it. So that's just my perspective.
I have a different perspective.
Sure.
I don't think mental health is something that is attainable. I think it is on a continuum, and it is something that we move in and out of. I agree, there's nothing wrong, there's nothing to be fixed, there's nothing to change. It is about connecting to ourselves in this cosmos and as part and of nature and our surroundings and all these things around us. The word mental health makes me anxious, and yeah, I'm just going to put that out there.
Yeah, so to piggyback on what you were just saying about that, Michelle, I think that things are the way we perceive them. If you look at the observer principle, the more that we say we are a certain thing, I know many of us are on this call and a part of this group because at some point or another, we or somebody else diagnosed us as being nonlinear, in my case, high functioning on the spectrum. And I think that how we see ourselves and the world, whether it's mental health or whether it's a diagnosis we may or may not have received, I think that the question we have to ask ourselves is, does it empower us? Because if we're at the effect of a diagnosis or term like mental health, in fact, another friend of mine, brilliant nonlinear thinker who Perry knows, Justin Breen, he one time gave me the definition of the word business. Many of us don't even realize the word business comes from the word busyness, which actually comes from the word anxiety. And yet that's what we all build our lives around. So I think if we get caught up in the labels of mental health, autism, nonlinear, linear, neurodiverse, neurotypical, we're going to box ourselves in. And I would invite us to kind of step out of that paradigm and to ask ourselves, coming from nothing, which I think was the intention of today's talk with Perry and with everything we're doing at the Octopus Movement, coming from nothing, what would be possible if we put aside all of our presuppositions of what mental health meant? It was an exercise years ago I learned in a personal development class called wondering. Imagine that we put aside all our feelings, our thoughts, our worries, our actions, our inactions, and our beliefs, and we had this blank space. What would happen if we just wondered? I wonder what mental health could mean. I wonder what mental health could look like, and to get rid of all the predispositions and suppositions we have about it. That's just my 2 cents.
I'd like
Perhaps
to
I can jump in
very much,
here.
and I love that Ambreen and Jennifer came to a place talking about the names and that what we believe is what we are. So Jennifer saying that calling ourselves X, Y, or Z diagnosis that was made by someone else, or that was labeled by something else, by the DSM or something else, which is an insurance manual meant to, are we treatable or are we not by pharmaceuticals? When we take ourselves out of that and either identify with something that someone else says, just like we can identify with love because we've learned it, or don't call ourselves anything, it's a state of, Michelle, it's like a state of wellness, that instead of a state of health that is attainable. If we are well, it means that we are working, that we are functional, and that means we may, at least I think it means that we may be in a place of not feeling not feeling injured, feeling afraid, feeling uncalm, but we can respond to that and pivot from that by asking for help or by emoting or whatever it does. Just that, to allow that to be part of wellness, because we are shifting ourselves. And for us to be able to respond to other people shifting themselves, emoting, asking for help, we can change that idea that there is some set place within a box of what is healthy and what is not.
Yeah, I'd like to add, like, especially like when you say that what is healthy and what is not, it's all about, again, when I was studying psychology, that thing used to come to me, and it used to bother me also, because we define normal on the basis of, like, the what you call is the curve, standard curve, right? Like what is normal, like where the average people like think like that. But what about those who think differently? And that's why uh, and I think that's why there is a stigma attached to it, because those people who think differently are often termed as crazy or something that, and then that the entire dilemma comes in, because even if I share my experience, like I was trying, I always, because I think differently, I always find difficulty to fit in. And when you find difficulty to fit in, then you think that there's something wrong with you. There's something, like either you are broke or something is really serious wrong with the other people. So the thing is, and that's why, like, I started our conversation with that quote, that I think, therefore I am, because we define our reality. We are ourselves. We need to think that, okay, if I'm thinking differently, that doesn't mean that I'm wrong, or there is a need to fit in. It's just simply this, that okay, I think differently. There is no right and wrong, as in the beginning Perry mentioned that there is no right and wrong. So I feel that when someone wants to achieve the well-being, especially in terms of mental well-being, so there is no right and wrong. It's something that you need to find out what is bothering you, why it's bothering you, and why do you need to fit into this. And to me, it's all about becoming aware, becoming like it's knowing yourself, and then everything becomes to make everything, like it starts to make sense to you.
I love that, Abrina. Sorry, I didn't mean to
Yes, okay.
disagree or put you in the
No,
spot
no,
at
no, that's
all.
fine.
I do love that, and I think it is that awareness. It's the bell curve you talk about, and I have my doubts about it. I've worked a few years in psychometrics, And I don't think the bigger picture is shown. I don't think we really see our place as unique, or as Michael would say, one of ones within in the world. We are each unique, and there is no normal, according to me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We're
I
having
have a
such
question.
wonderful. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So I was just listening to what everyone. Oh dear, is that what I look like now that you enlarged the image? Yeah. So I have a question, and this kind of tags on to what various of the panelists have said. It tags on to I think it was Jennifer that said early on is. No one is broken or wrong or needs to be fixed. And Breen, you just said that there's no right or wrong. Michelle, you mentioned that mental health isn't a thing. It's something that you can move in or out of, and that the very concept makes you anxious. And I agree with, and I said that this was a question and not a statement. Look at me go. My question to the panel is, and I don't have an answer to this question. I'm thinking out loud. If we aren't broken, if nothing needs to get fixed, if mental health is some unattainable standard that just isn't possible, if there's no right or wrong, how do we address, if we need to throw out things like the DSM and all of that, how do we deal with people who want to take their own life, or people who aren't able to go to work because they have auditory hallucinations? And yes, I see, Jennifer, you have an answer.
Well, I have to go, guys. I'm so sorry, but this is very
Oh.
near and dear to my heart. You're breaking my heart, Cliff, because mental health and suicidal ideation. I tried to kill myself 3 times between 18 to 21, so it's not. That's why I'm here today. Whatever I can do to save one other person's life. And I think I leave you with this, Cliff, and everybody else. One of my spiritual teachers years ago taught me, when we are really depressed, when we are inconsolable, one of the greatest things we can do is to be of service, because when we're so focused on the self, I'm not going to survive, nobody cares about me, nobody loves me, that's how I felt. If you can help somebody in that place to find a way to be of service and to be with them in that pain. One of my dearest friends, Mark Golston, who recently passed away, had the honor of never having lost a patient in his 30, 40 plus year career as a psychiatrist and somebody who was a suicide expert. And I will always recall Mark telling me a story of how he sat with a woman who wanted to kill herself. And he sat there being so present with her that all of the color drained from the room while he was speaking to her. And as he sat there with her, all of a sudden he understood why she wanted to die. And he looked at her, and rather than trying to fix her, which ties it back to our earlier conversation, he said, I now understand why you want to go. And I think by developing that level of compassion and empathy, he saved her life. And Mark saved my life when I was going through a hard time. So number one, if we can support people who are inconsolably depressed and wanting to take their own lives with having some semblance of purpose, that's number one. And number two, sometimes just being with somebody who's that deeply in the darkness can save a life. So I will leave you all with that, and thank you for your time, everyone.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Jennifer, for being with us. Thank you
Much
so
love.
much.
Sorry, I can't stay.
Yeah.
So if I may hop in, Cliff, I think this is kind of where having labels is helpful. I seem to be the the other side of the coin tonight. But again, when I was diagnosed as ADHD, it suddenly explained a lot of my life and why I didn't fit in. And being able to find a group of people who make up my tribe has been incredibly helpful. Having a diagnostic manuals along those lines, which working with suicidal ideation, again, same situation as Jennifer. I have tried. My father committed suicide. My stepfather committed suicide. A good friend of mine committed suicide. It's something that's been in my life a lot of loss. labels, while they can cause anxiety because now you're being forced to fit in with a group, by the same token, almost develop community. So there's always the two sides of this. As it is, we've applied a label to ourselves. We're nonlinear thinkers. Hi, have a label. So we're people. We're whatever agenda label you fit within or not. By having a label or choosing not to have one, pardon my horse in the background, these are things that can either give us comfort or create anxiety. And I think it's how we choose to fit in with those labels that are put on us and use the ones that suit us and give us benefit, and throw away the ones that don't. I embrace being neurodivergent. I embrace being a gifted adult. I embrace being a highly sensitive person. Having Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and walking into a hospital and going, I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, helps me. It literally saves my life. But going, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a label that I really dislike. Like a boss bitch, excuse my language, but not a label I work with. It doesn't work for me, so I'm going to throw it out the window. And I think we need to be a little bit more take control of the words that people use to class us and the words we use, and not be so sensitive about other ones that we don't like. It's in our power to go, this doesn't work for me, thank you, but no.
I think there's a difference, and I appreciate what you're saying. I don't like labels very much. I know that they have a space, and some people have a benefit to them, and I love that. But I think there's a point to be made around the difference between belonging and fitting in. And for me, belonging doesn't need a label, where fitting in almost feels like something like an external validation, where we all belong. We are all uniquely perfect. So can we find a way to connect to that with or without a label? Doesn't really matter.
Yeah, if I may add, it's like, I agree with both of you, like Michelle and Darren, because I think you both are saying the same thing. And it's like, labeling. And if I can see it, is like, it's just, again, I go back to my own perspective again. It's about knowing yourself, being aware, and then knowing what you are and why you are like that. So if you know that, that's how, if you make it as a label, then you become like, you can say that, okay, I'm a neurodivergent, or I'm like a maybe non-linear thinker. But first of all, the first step is knowing yourself. That's one thing. I think for me, it's a very, very critical thing. And that's why it is, I mean, even in the beginning, I said that mental health is everything, because it is linked with mind. And if I see mind is everything. Like I've seen people like, this Stephen Hawkins, like, everyone. His body was paralyzed, completely paralyzed. And the only thing was working was his brain. And yet he proved those black holes and everything. So, if your mind is working and you know how to use it, you can conquer the world. So for me, I think it's the same thing. It's just, it starts with awareness.
I love how everything is flowing. Can I say that? This is wonderful. I have two thoughts popping up. One is I keep thinking about jazz. I was at a jazz concert a few weeks ago with a good friend in the Netherlands. Emmett Cohen from the United States. What a brilliant jazz performer. And this good friend of mine has never been to a jazz concert like that and jazz performance. And what I really loved, what he said at the end, he said, it's incredible. Everybody is doing their own shit, and yet it fits all together. And he said, it's amazing to see that. And although they were all in their own flow, in their own state of performance and art, yet they were connected and they were working together, although, you know, sometimes it sounds like chaos that they were not working together. And that constantly pops up in my mind when I'm listening to you, that I'm sometimes have a feeling that mental health is like jazz, where the awareness of what's happening inside of you and around you is sometimes chaotic, and then we have a feeling that we have to adjust, that it needs to fit. And the other thought that I had was, I also agree, you need to know yourself, you need to love yourself to love someone else, and it's about, and labels are really helping me as well to understand, oh, this is ADHD brain. On the other hand, and I keep telling this story, but it's popping up constantly, and I'm doing the thumb thumb. Anyway, when I was homeless, I didn't change, and that was my biggest awakening. Nothing changed inside of me, yet everything changed around me, and that's how I got to know myself. That this is me, and I've always tried to adjust myself to others because I wanted to see myself how others see me. But that experience became so clear that I could feel that my thinking was the same, and therefore I'm the same, yet everybody else was responding in a different way to me, and they didn't see me, they didn't like to see me, and that changed my life. And I think it made me healthy. I don't know what it is exactly, but it made me healthy in my mental being and in allowing in where I am and what I do and how I feel. And sometimes I feel like shit, and I feel depressed, and I can cry, and I'm miserable and happy, but that's okay now. And in the past it wasn't okay. And yeah, it feels like jazz, but maybe I'm too much of a jazz lover.
I love jazz. It's so good. And I didn't love it my whole life. I hated it. And I started singing in a jazz ensemble, performing, and I was able to recognize the beauty. And there's a couple of topics I wanted to bring to this forum. And sometimes, myself included, we have a tendency to over intellectualize mental health. And I don't bring in enough fun. And that's an area like fun and gratitude, and to take the focus off of the mental health and the labels and the not labels, like whether it is or it isn't, and to be, and to think about fun. And if people are treating other people or helping other people or modeling mental health for other people, live into that. Be fun, be authentic, it works in my life. And gratitude has been amazing. It's an area that has helped me present in the world as, I guess, happy or not someone who struggles with mental health, although I will always, and I'm happy about that, because it's not comfortable to grow sometimes. And when I'm uncomfortable, I'm growing. So I just wanted to bring the ideas of fun and play and just lightheartedness into this convo.
I'm going to piggyback on that fun piece, because what Perry described and Chrissy, what you described, really resonates with the clients that come to me. And the clients, I can root back where their dissidence is with themselves. And it's usually in their formative years within their families, of them not being allowed to, I like the word one of one, to be their unique self, because they're being molded and fitted, whether it would be within the family construct or in the educational system. They are being taught to act and perform a certain way to stay in this box. Whereas if we have a shift to customize and individualize that oneness of who they are, maybe the depression, the anxiety will lessen as they grow, and they won't experience some of the mental wellness issues that can spiral out of control, that can lead to the suicidal thoughts. So I'm a big advocate for that customized, individualized help to find out who they truly are. So going back to who are you, what drives you, what are your personal goals, what are your interests, what are your natural talents, your interests, and by shaping the children in a different way, I think it wouldn't be such a crisis the way we see it today, with people not being able to function to their best performance in life.
Yeah, I would actually like to add here, especially when Perry said that, when you found yourself in those moments, and I can so much relate to what he said, because if I recall my time when I was going through my suicidal thoughts, and it was a very depressing time, and I would say that those were the lowest moments, and when I was thinking that there's no hope and there's no life for me for my future. But then in those moments when I was thinking that there's no life, I found life there, because then I realized in those moments, because when I thought that everything is over now, I thought that no, I think the pain that I was trying to get away from was not basically outside, was within myself. And in those moments, because the struggle that was going on was because every day I used to cry a lot, and I used to think, and I used to pray that I should never see another morning in. So, but then I realized that it was not the pain that is somewhere outside; it was inside my head. And in those moments, I realized that it was the chaos is not outside. It's everything is inside. And when I calmed down that chaos that was bothering me, everything changed. And then, like, even it may sound like a cliche that when you start to look at things differently, and then they appear different, right? Everything changes around you. So the thing is that it's all about when I see that the universe actually tests your patience, that are you really worthy to survive or not? So, and you go through such pain to become someone, and the all thing that I learned from all these years is that whatever happens in life, there is a reason, and we need to understand. That's it. And when we learn the lesson, we grow, and those moments which were quite disturbing, those become like the precious moment, because those you get insight, you get enlightenment from those dark moments.
I wanted to.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Cliff. I wanted to not be the opposite side of the coin, but actually to agree with play. Play is amazing. I try and use that in my coaching, where I find somebody who they're stuck in survival mode. And as long as they're stuck in survival mode, they can't think of the positive, and they can't think of the good, and they can't think of how their life could be better. And if you can engage play brain, then suddenly you're taken out of survival mode, because they can't survive, they can't be together. You're either surviving or you're in a playful state. And I love how this brings that positivity back, because then you can reshape your perspective of your situation, of your life, of yourself, of your experiences, of everything. And you can choose another path other than the one of survival, which was right in front of their faces.
What I wanted to say earlier is dear. Stop doing that, Terry. Um, everyone is being very vulnerable, so I don't want to detract from the focus on the self, but I think we've spoken a lot about loving yourself and being in touch with yourself, knowing yourself, self-acceptance, but mental health, at least in sort of in a clinical sense, is basically an umbrella term for functioning, right? Is your cognitive, emotional, behavioral functioning, are you functioning? Can you operate in society? But the problem with that model or framework is the assumption that the context within which you are functioning is either fine or irrelevant, which is simply not the case. I didn't see the name, but someone just commented about mental health being commercialized and organizations selling to our pain, which is very true. Capitalism is a poison on this earth, and I won't go into that. But what I do want to mention is there's this, and I just quickly Googled it. If you Google koala has anxiety, there's this cartoon that I saw a long time ago, and it's basically just it's a forest that's been cut down, and there's just a bunch of stumps, and there's a koala sitting on the stump and like freaking out, and someone is standing next to them saying this koala has anxiety, which is ridiculous because there's nothing wrong with the koala. It's because you've destroyed its home. And while it is very important that we do look at individual challenges, self-acceptance, all of these things, I think where conversations like this, nonlinear thinking, is incredibly important is to challenge how we see the context and how we frame the context when we talk about mental health. There's already a lot of research and a lot of literature around decolonizing mental health, because mental health as a Western tool still has, unfortunately, a lot of colonial legacies. It also disregards a lot of indigenous knowledge around community. Which is the point that I want to get to, is we have to talk about mental health as a community, as a group endeavor. And I think this also speaks to what Jennifer mentioned about her mentor who spoke to the client who had suicidal ideation, and really connecting the difference happening there is connecting with that person. Now, I would argue that if we want to achieve mental health on a global scale, we have to focus on that. We have to focus on connection and community as a central part of the mental health conversation. Thank you.
I love that, Cliff, and that is such a great point. I just put a quote in there that came to mind, and it's no measure of health to be well adjusted in a profoundly sick society. And we forget about that quite often when we go, there's something wrong with the human, but there isn't. It's actually just a sensitive being that is acting exactly as any sensitive being would.
I read something relatively recently that, and I haven't done the research into it, so I stand to be corrected on this, but the hypothesis was that women live longer than men because they have community. Women will go and meet each other and go and have tea and share their emotions and share what's stuck mentally, emotionally, whatever the case may be. And they've got this ability to work with somebody else, to see either a different viewpoint or somebody to commiserate with them, or whatever the case may be. But men have been so constrained and restricted from community for various reasons and various fears, and not being allowed to share their mental and emotional thoughts and well-being. And I am generalizing, and also slightly older generations here. But it was hypothesized that men don't live as long because they don't have that same ability to share and to get rid of these things that are sitting inside them. And we know that emotional and mental has an impact on the physiological. So I'm wondering, Cliff, working into your community, what are your thoughts on how this affects men specifically?
Thank you, Lauren. So that's not just an hypothesis. What you're saying is completely correct, 100%. That's actually one of the things that I'm very passionate about. Although I don't do nearly enough work in that, I think there is a lot of work that needs to be done around masculinity, creating resources, especially for young men, to have safe spaces to express and to share and to find connection and support. Suicide rates amongst men globally are disproportionately higher than women. There's lots of stats, but it's 100% true what you're saying. That's why I think in the age of social media, people like Andrew Tate, who's that psychologist, Jordan Peterson, who target vulnerable younger men. And you mentioned older generations, Lauren. It's unfortunately not just older generations. For a lot of men in the West, again, I'm not sure about other parts of the world. Definitely that constraint is still there. It is a problem. And when we look at the global scale and we look at politics, we look at social issues, if you dig deep enough, you'll find toxic masculinity. So it's a big thing, and community has a role to play there. I think it's definitely a tool that can be applied there, one that is very effective. So yeah, any exercise or group or organization that supports or organize these types of things, I would support, definitely.
Is it worth separating it though? You just triggered me with the safe space. Is there a way that we can create a sacred space in society in general for masculine and feminine energies to be able to find a balance and be able to express themselves really as uniquely and in balance to each other? Because we can do this together. We can have, all of it, I think, I hope.
Was that for me?
I don't know.
Well, I can comment on it. I can say in a perfect world, yes.
Yes.
Currently, though, the nature of our experiences are of such a nature, the nature of our experiences of such a nature, that we do need those safe spaces. We don't need those safe spaces exclusively. We need those safe spaces and then other spaces, collective, harmonized spaces, or whatever you want to call them. But yeah, I agree with you. In an ideal world, we would have harmony and being able to sit around the table regardless of our background. But that's just not the world that we live in, and we need to be realistic.
Yet we can create it for ourselves, I think, maybe, within our family, in our friend groups, within the Octopus Movement, or wherever we are. This is something we could play with.
It's also what Abrim said earlier on, right? That it is you, it is me, not you, it's me. And I had fun with George Monty yesterday morning, and we wanted to create a bumper sticker. Fuck, it's me. But it's it would be an interesting bumper sticker, Fuck, it's me. It is me, right? I find that interesting. That keeps resonating. And Anthony, what were you saying? It's you posted something. The only way to get what you want is to get what you want. Then that's also fuck, it's me, right?
Well, I come from a builder architectural background that even though you're given a constraints of property, you have to see that the between the lines, what is, and you don't start with all the components, but like an architect, you start with the whole, what is it that we want to, what is the outcome, what is it we want to build, what is it that we want to have, in this case, is a system that serves, the mental wellness of the individual, and how they can learn how to, have agency in their own wellness, and how to communicate that, and how to support and facilitate that. And so, I come from that kind of mindset that, okay, then that's just for me, but just if we're looking to, develop programs and how to, how to make mental wellness a foundation of all the work that we're doing, and so, and supporting that through the play-based learning, concept and games that we're using as a way to kind of create those bridges for those who are, finding a way to, dissolve those issues within themselves. And but for me, it's about, okay, I'm taking those best practices, and how do we create then a platform for us to be a facilitator in those ways, and help those individuals learn about themselves, and then be given tools to help, like I said, be in repairing their own thought process, and how those are a part of their just everyday interactions, and having healthy interactions and conversations with individuals. So that's just kind of where I'm coming from.
I wanted to just quickly go back to what Michelle was saying. I don't think the safe spaces need to be, they're not exclusive. I mean, a woman can create a safe space for a man can create a safe space for a woman. I think the fundamental here is that there is a global lack of safety for many young and old, for many people. Let's just round that off, for many people. And it seems to be more so in the case of the male population than the female. I'm the stepmom of two wonderful young men. And even watching them, where they battle to speak what their emotions are, they battle to tell their truth for fear of being judged, for fear of what their friends will say, for fear of all of these things. And when I look at how they are growing up compared to how my cousins grew up, where, boys don't cry, boys will be boys, there's more freedom for my stepsons than there was for my cousins. And yet I'm still seeing this repression. And there was a post that came up the other day on one of my socials that said, who do you speak to when you're hurting? Who do you speak to when you're hurting? And the women on the post were coming up and saying, my bestie, my mom, my sister. 1 out of maybe 20 was saying no one, or my pillow, or the shower, where the males were really the opposite way around. And I'm sure that this would fall into the trans community as well, and all of our LGBTQ. There's lack of safe spaces where there's understanding and there's true safety, with no judgment. And I want to know how we can help. I want to know what can be done to give people spaces where they truly feel free.
This is where I jump in really quickly. And my passion, you're speaking to my passion, Lauren, as I mentioned earlier, wanting that, starting a young youth, the education system, the family structures, and showing them a different way to be able to foster individuality, that oneness within their home. So many of the people, I'm hearing conversations, and I keep going back to the judgment. When you were talking, Lauren, a couple of things you've said just hit with me. And if we can get away from the judgment of what we expect of our children, of our teens, of our adults, and where they're supposed to be at that particular time in their life, so much of their mental wellness, their inability to reach their goals and fulfill their potential in life can be wavered. And so many of us in our country, we're getting them when they've gone through all this and we're trying to unwind it. Many of the times the people that I come into contact with, and they're young to 70-year-olds, and they're spiraling down, and you got to get to them in a place where they do get to know themselves. They see the strengths, even though they didn't fit into society in the way that they were expected to behave within their homes and their cultures. But if you can get that and then build from that, it takes time and effort. And if we can look at it in a younger of society and where these judgments are coming from, our children are born, think of the young toddler who's dancing and singing and happy and trying things, and then they get into the school system and the creativity goes down, their confidence goes down. And if we can look at those structures and those frameworks there, then people like Grandpa Stork's program, going into other countries and letting them be free and be creative and be happy. We were talking about that earlier. I think that it's a social construct that unfortunately feeds into this mental wellness issue.
Yes, I will actually agree to what Michelle said, and I'm quite passionate about it. And it's not only me; my son is also very passionate about it. Like, you know what? The main problem with the society is that they want everyone to behave in a way that they want, and like especially like the people, as you said, like they start judging if they're not behaving as they're expected to, and that's where people feel that they are not themselves, because God has created us in a unique way, right? And when we are not in our own, like say, skin, we will never feel comfortable. And that's exactly what happens in society, in, like as you said, in education system. There's so much. I mean, people are told not to do rather than like what to do. That's the main dilemma. That we need people to give the safe space where they are free to do what they want to do, of course in a way that they not hurt others, but it's we shouldn't be judging others when they are trying to be themselves. And that's where main problem, the mental well-being problem, comes in, when they leave their own selves and try to fit in when they are not.
Mm-hmm.
The system doesn't allow a voice for our children. At the moment, this is something I'm really struggling with, where we are teaching our children to listen to their bodies and to themselves, but they have to ask permission to go to the toilet, and they can be denied that permission. Mm-hmm. So how can they be denied that permission when it's such a basic thing that should be allowed? If we have trust, if we see the whole person, this should not be a conversation we're still having in 2024.
Michelle, I'm going to piggyback. One of my biggest complaints is this. As adults, if we're sitting in here right now in this meeting and we're getting antsy, maybe we have a lot of energy, we could tap a pencil, we can mute ourselves, we can wiggle in our chairs. We have that ability to self-soothe. But as soon as our kids enter into the education system, they're expected to sit. They cannot get up and go to the bathroom. They cannot fidget in their chairs, the kids that are going to get knocked over backwards. And so right from the get-go, they are constrained, and then they're feeling, if you're somebody who needs action or you need to take care of yourself, you're depriving yourself of who you are in that moment. And I get the system needs it, for a movement in a classroom, but I'm challenging the system to look at a different way to approach it so that we can individualize it and customize it and look at it so that we have more freedom of movement, so that students are not expected to conform and constrict their abilities to flourish and do what they need to do to be the best they need to be.
Michelle, that when we're born, when we are a baby, we are absolutely well. We are so well. And when I'm listening to you, I hear that that's what we want to honor. We want to look at the fact that a baby, without being in a system, unless a baby is very quickly treated with goo goo gaga, you are a baby, you know nothing, and that, you know, they are learning what we are doing around them, and they know how to learn that. They immediately figure out that person, when I smile, that person gives me attention. That person, when I cry, picks me up, and I can't pick myself up and make myself warm or cool or whatever it is because of the environment that I'm in. But when I smile, that person picks me up. And this is supreme wellness. And they're figuring out who they are and who they want to be. And then as soon as we get into a school system, and here in the United States, we are denying health care depending on what people decide they are, what children decide they are. But yet, when we're born, we are supremely well in figuring out who we are. And I wonder, where does that change?
Well, it's good not to know a language, right? When you're a baby. Sorry. I was thinking when you're a baby, you don't have any language. This is very good.
Well, I think it comes when we have to have some sort of order, I guess, you know, when we get into the society and how we fit into it. And so it's a method that was developed so long ago that hasn't really been challenged to say, how can we individualize? How can we customize to honor that natural curiosity, the natural position of a student, you know, as they mature through the years in the educational system and then go on to society and still be a productive, law-abiding citizen. And so to me, it's really turning it upside down. And I see momentum. I see amazing momentum, but it's a lot of time to go. But yeah, it's a different system that needs to be created.
I wonder if the fun of it, like for the fun of it for me was breaking out of the system. And I know this could be a controversial topic in the way that, like, I believe the system was constructed exactly the way it was for my soul's development. And it was a really, really empowering move, learning that I can sit in a bouncy chair on a Zoom call, right? Like, and I couldn't when I was younger. And I had that contrast. I knew that I had to be a certain way. And I wonder if we need to change, we need this, we need that. And I'm all for change. And I really want to put out positivity in the world, but I do sometimes wonder if the fun of it is breaking out of it. Just food for thought.
I think the people that break out are amazing. I'm unfortunately see so many people in the over the years that they can't find themselves. They've lost themselves because they never fit in. They were trying to fit in rather than just be who they are. And it took so much to get to who they are. I've seen the fallout of it, even in my own personal life with suicidal in my family and whatnot. It was just being the shame and the embarrassment that they felt that they brought to the family because they didn't fit in to the system the way it was. And remarkable as they were as individuals, the toll it took on their mental wellness, they couldn't get beyond that. And it started when they got into the educational system.
And there lies the secret. Oh, sorry, Lauren.
Sorry, Michelle. Very quickly, the impact of Michelle talking about stimming earlier, and the impact of needing to conform, that mental side and not being able to self-soothe has such a physiological impact as well. And you see kids who come home from school and they have a complete meltdown when they get home. And this now impacts mom or dad or whoever their caretaker is and thinking, oh, I'm such a terrible parent. My kid just melts down every time they come home and screaming and shouting. But the reality is that this is the first time this child has had to decompress in the day. Mm-hmm. And as you see adults getting older and they come home from work and they're just exhausted and they can't face their housework. They can't face cooking a meal. They can't face anything but possibly falling into bed. And the exhaustion that comes from needing to conform, where in a world that wasn't built for people who don't fit that societal expectation.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the jig, right? Here's the the true tea is no one fits in. No one fits in. The system was created for some abstract what normal distribution mean. I mean, that person simply doesn't exist. I mean, maybe, but there's one person.
Somewhere very far away that doesn't engage.
Right. What is that neurotypical thing? It's a statistic.
It really is.
Of people who
really is.
These who like blue Subarus, who honestly,
what the hell, blue Subarus? That's a thing.
It's arbitrary, right? And yet when we're like what you're saying, Cliff, the flip side of that is that we are born belonging.
Mm-hmm.
So where do we get this norm, this statistic of normalcy?
At the risk of sounding like I need a tinfoil hat, capitalism. It's capitalism. It's not profitable to make sure that everyone is healthy and fed and educated. It's not profitable to have people that can speak up, to have people to be able to advocate for themselves. And I mean, it's an election year in many countries around the world, and I think we need to hold our public representatives accountable, because we just don't. And then we have educational systems that oppress people. We don't have sufficient healthcare so people can seek out care when they need it, and it just leads to systems that are perpetually broken.
I'm going to say, Cliff, I just recently was asked to help a employee resource group to advocate for them, to help them, because they're so diverse in their needs, and yet they're high producers in a large corporation. This to me would be a beautiful think tank of how can we individualize, customize, help people ask for whatever they need to be their best version of themselves in the workforce in such a way that it feeds to the productivity and the overall mission of the corporation, and truly honor it. Because what I'm seeing is that a lot of people are honoring diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging by putting different systems in place. But what I'm seeing is a trickle-down effect to the people working. They're not feeling it. It's more of a checking the box versus truly helping people feel that they are okay in their own skin and what they need, and okay to ask for whatever accommodation that they might need, and the company not being able to act on that. Because what I'm seeing is there's a disconnect between the group, which was a good thought to get going, is to have these employee resource groups, but then they don't know what to do with it from there. And so somebody like me can come in and be that neutral person, non-judgmental, because the shame, the embarrassment, and the judgment is there. Even though they have their own group, they're afraid to go and then say what they want to management.
I want to pick up something. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Very quickly, you're each using these ideas of corporation profit, capitalism, and productivity. And what if we look at these words as something else? Because capitalism is not human. It's a human construct, but it is not human. What if we take these words and look at profit instead as different types of capital, different types of things by which we profit and by which we produce, having to do with care, with love, with progress, with human things that we can do together in communication. That the idea, as you were speaking, the idea of capitalism being a construct which we look at in a very narrow way creates a barrier for us to progress and to profit as humans. I'm sorry to interrupt, Cliff.
Oh, no, that's totally fine. I just wanted to pick out something. And Michelle, I don't want you to think that I'm picking on you or judging you in any way. But you mentioned two things. You said you were working with this resource group and they were high performers. And then also you spoke about productivity. And just when you said it, the idea just came up in my head because I do diversity work in organizations. And so the question I want to pose is, so do we only have to give resources? And I'm sure you're going to say no, but do we only give resources for diversity and for mental health when people are able to produce? And of course, I'm sure everyone in this group will say no, but that's actually a big sort of body of work, and I'm sure many of you have heard of the business case for diversity and inclusion, which makes my blood boil because the underpinning assumption is that we're only going to worry about advocating for people and giving them resources if they can, add to the bottom line. And that's so problematic, but that's a symptom. That's how capitalism, and sorry, Lydia, but I can't with capitalism. And that's been so baked into our thinking, we don't even realize it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's why I just wonder if we can unthink that idea of capitalism, of productivity, of bottom line, and bring it into the space of the space between thoughts, and say, what is it that we, when we get together, that we really want? Is it money? Are we going to bring money with us to the grave? No. What do we want what do we want?
Maybe Lydia, maybe oh no, I'm not muted. Sometimes I start talking and I'm muted. Maybe we all need to be quiet for a few months. Disconnect from all the thinking that is going on. Maybe, maybe nature tried to do that with COVID and it worked a little bit. Everybody stayed at home. Nature was blooming. We all were thinking, what are we doing? The new thoughts were created. I thought it was fascinating. We're all constantly making little rounds of thoughts that are constantly there, and it's constantly happening. And then indeed corporates, oh, we need to do diversity, check the box system, thinking. Maybe we need to all create the bumper sticker, fuck it's me, and now I'm quiet for 3 months, and shut the fuck up, right? And create space. I love the fact that someone said we need to create space for the teenagers, for the young adults, create space that we can talk about these things, disconnected from the isolation of the normal thoughts that we all have, that we're all conditioned by. We all went to school, we all went to university or not, or whatever. We need to disconnect, maybe. We're isolated. Look at the war in the world. It's based on thoughts. What the hell? And education, you all know that I'm always very busy with education and my kids and education and what's happening. Everybody is so busy with their thinking. Maybe we all need to shut the fuck up and create some more mental health in the world by being quiet.
I agree with you, Perry, so wholeheartedly. What I say to people is this, and whether you are a student in school or an adult, in a corporate world, that quiet, that space, getting in touch, going back to who you are individually, and then re-enter back after you take that time out, that space between thoughts. Lydia, that was beautiful. And then think about it, re-enter your head, yes, you need to think about it. Does it resonate in your heart? And then how does it feel in your gut? And if we look at corporate America, and if we have a different perspective of just, we know that money doesn't buy happiness, but we don't really have a framework for us to go by to see how we can have a positive mental wellness outlook on ourselves. But I do believe if you can connect with your head, your heart, and your gut, it's somewhere in there.
Maybe in that quiet space, we can soften the barriers between all of these different ways and all of these different hearts.
Mhm.
That we're creating containers for ourselves. We created a container for this conversation, but just look at this conversation. It's not a hard container. It doesn't have hard walls. It has soft borders, and we can continue outside of it. We can continue within it. If we have spaces for young people and spaces for employees and spaces around HR that have soft walls that we don't crash against in a way that isolates us.
Mhm.
Maybe that would come up in that space, that silent space, Perry.
Space.
The final frontier.
Can I say that we're doing this for 1 hour and 21 minutes. Wow. It's almost 1.5 hours. First time we're doing a dialogue like this. So I'm changing the atmosphere now, sorry. Because we're almost to the end. Wow. Wasn't this That's how I feel. Wasn't this beautiful and smooth and soft indeed, Lydia, and interesting and there was some quietness here and there. I love that. We were thinking. I really had the idea, and that was the idea I had starting this. Is it's not Michelle's Rez and Michelle and Chrissy's brain, but it's our brain, working together in creating something, whatever. I really enjoyed it. I hope you feel the same way. But I see a lot of heads nodding. Like, yeah, yeah. But I hope it feels as good for you as it feels for me. And I'm curious for the people watching. And Michael, I've been sending a lot of messages. Thank you, Michael. And Carrie was there, and Mark and Karen. And this will be, on social media, on YouTube. People can watch this. I hope we can inspire people with our dialogues in a soft and nonlinear way where we listen to each other and become one nonlinear brain. I would love it if all of you say something, just whatever pops to mind, and it doesn't need to be in line with the laws of thought. Oh, I enjoyed this very much. Just say what you want to say, whatever comes up to mind. Can we do that? And just start talking if you want to talk. I'm not the conductor here.
My passion right now is to leave a legacy with every person that I touch or can come in contact, to help them navigate life in a holistic manner that is in line with their own unique happiness, passion, and purpose. Once I wrote the book on that, so that we may be able to be in a world where mental wellness is not a crisis statement. That's why I do.
It's what what was brought to mind for me, that laws, that what matter is there, that we adhere to the laws of communication and thought right now, or not, because we each look at the purpose, at the reason for the law, and say, is that where I am right now, or is it not? That's just my head, and I spoke it.
Yeah, I think I just like to add that it is so inspiring. I mean, the entire conversation, I really loved it. Although Perry said that you don't have to say that we enjoyed this conversation, but what I really liked about it, that it's through this kind of conversation, we give the message out there that the people who are maybe different, or maybe who think that they are not able to fit in, we just can give them the message that they are not broken. There is nothing wrong with them. It's okay to think different, and it's okay to be different and yet have your own worth. So I think this is the great initiative, and then we can do that. And the other thing, just before the entire thing, like especially the last part when you said that we need the quiet time. Like, I'm a great proponent of the solitude and finding the quietness in our mind, because that is the only way we can actually find ourselves. Because I don't know, like, that Joe Dispenza also talked more about it. Like, you will find yourself in the space of nothingness. Like, this is the best space you can achieve or you can embrace. So I think that's a wonderful initiative, Betty. Thank you.
And this ties
Well,
into
for me,
you go first.
okay, well, for me, for Grandpa, I really feel like I'm like floating in the sea of ideas, and that the conversations have given me such food for thought, and that to take the time afterwards to kind of digest and to float through and to see what bubbles to the top as far as some of the great insights that are part of this conversation.
So my passion, after what Breen was saying about creating safe spaces, that's very much where my passion lies with neurodivergent people, and creating room for them to be them. I sometimes we do markets and things, and we have the amount of people who come to my stall and they're neurodivergent, and they find their tribe, and they find the safe space to fit in, and they enjoy seeing the stuff we make because we're creative and we rely on this creativity. And I'm looking forward to seeing how I can do this more, how I can try and make more safe spaces, and how I can collaborate with others who want to also create these safe spaces, or teach how to create the safe spaces within ourselves, because I think that's a big thing that a lot of people are missing.
Yo quiero bailar toda la noche. I want to dance all night. That's what I have to say.
Thank you. We were really thinking together. That was a good feeling. I like that. Thank you so much. Michelle, do you want to share something?
Yes, I'm reading Rick Rubin's book as well, The Creative Act. So I have to mention this beautiful that came to mind, and this is what I think we can do with these kinds of things, because dialogue is magical. There's no right or wrong. The magic in it is that we shouldn't agree to have these spaces where we can really expand and change the way we think about the way we think about the way we think. And Rick Rubin's quote is, create an environment where you're free to express what you were afraid to express. And I think that's what we yearn for. And there were such beautiful comments on here today. I'm going to go back and read all of them. Yeah, thank you, Perry.
Thank you. Cliff, final words for you. Please, buddy.
Be curious and be kind. You're welcome. Thanks, Perry. Thank you for allowing me to be part of this, and thank you, everyone, for being so vulnerable. I really appreciate it, being able to talk to you.
Everybody stay in the room. We're ending this session. We're getting out of the air and end the stream. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Reach out to us if you want to connect to someone here in the room. Just send us an email, or the Octopus Movement, or whatever you will find us, it's going to be fine. Thank you so much.